They left for Paris on the morning of my wedding, and they didn't even bother to tell me goodbye. I stood there in my white dress, watching my own parents drag their suitcases out the door while my mother laughed about finally enjoying a trip without responsibilities. My wedding day, and they chose a vacation over me. Before I continue, make sure you hit that subscribe button, share this story, and turn on notifications, because what happens next will shock you. Everyone in my family had always treated me like the forgotten daughter. My older sister, Amanda, was the star, the one they proudly bragged about. Me? I was the burden, the one who, according to them, could barely keep her life together. My parents whispered that I was marrying too young, that no man would stay with me, and that my fiancé, Daniel, was probably just settling because he couldn't do better. But they had no idea who Daniel really was. The humiliation started the moment I walked into the bridal suite. Amanda smirked as she sipped champagne, saying loud enough for everyone to hear, "Guess Mom and Dad finally showed where their priorities are. A Paris trip is way more exciting than Elodie's little wedding." The room erupted in laughter. My bridesmaids, who were secretly closer to Amanda, joined in like it was a comedy show. My chest tightened, but I forced a smile. They thought I was weak. They thought I would stay silent, just like always. What no one in that room knew was that Daniel wasn't some ordinary guy. He wasn't just my fiancé. He was a man who built an empire from scratch, a quiet millionaire who dressed simply and drove an old car to avoid attention. And he had promised me that today, the truth would finally come out, but before that truth was revealed, Amanda leaned closer, her perfume choking me, and whispered, "You'll never escape being second best. Even your wedding proves it. You're alone, Elodie. You'll always be alone." She didn't know the storm that was about to hit her. I clenched my fists so tightly my nails dug into my palms, but I didn't let Amanda see me break. She thrived on my silence, on the way I used to shrink whenever she mocked me. Not today. The wedding hall was filling up, and whispers floated around. My parents' empty seats in the front row screamed louder than any insult. Guests nudged each other, some even chuckling, "Imagine your own mom and dad skipping your big day. That's embarrassing." My face burned, but deep inside, a dangerous calm was growing. Daniel arrived at the church doors, looking just as simple as always. Crisp white shirt, dark suit, no flashy watch, no fancy car outside. To everyone, he looked like just another man. I overheard Amanda mutter to her friend, "This is the best she could do? No wonder Mom and Dad left. He looks like he can't even pay for dinner, let alone a future." Laughter followed. Every word stabbed me, but I stayed quiet, because I knew something they didn't. When the ceremony began, the priest's voice echoed, but my mind was on the whispers. Guests kept glancing at the empty front row. Amanda, sitting proudly in her sparkling designer dress, smirked like she had already won some secret game. Halfway through the vows, she suddenly coughed out loud and muttered, "What a bargain wedding. No flowers, no parents, no class. Typical Elodie." Everyone near her chuckled. My chest tightened, it felt like the entire hall was laughing at me. Daniel squeezed my hand under the altar table. His touch was steady, powerful, like he was silently saying, "Wait. Just wait." And then, as if the humiliation wasn't enough, Amanda stood up during the reception speech and clinked her glass. The hall went silent as she smirked. "Since Mom and Dad couldn't make it, I'll do the honors. Let's raise a toast to Elodie finally convincing someone to marry her. Honestly, Daniel, you're a saint. She's always been the family's pity project." The hall erupted in forced laughter. My vision blurred. My own sister was mocking me on the biggest day of my life. People stared at me like I was pathetic, like I was small. But Daniel didn't flinch. He calmly placed his glass down, looked across the hall, and said words that froze everyone mid-laugh. "Funny thing, Amanda, you keep mocking Elodie for being nothing. But do you know who paid for this entire wedding?" Every head turned. Amanda's smirk faltered for the first time, and what Daniel said next would leave the entire room in stunned silence. Daniel's voice carried across the hall with a calm authority that silenced even the whispers. He looked directly at Amanda. His eyes sharp, steady, and cold. This wedding wasn't paid for by Elodie's parents. It wasn't paid for by any bank loan either. It was paid for in full, by Elodie herself. Gasps spread through the room like wildfire. Amanda blinked, then forced a laugh. "Elodie? Please. She can barely afford her rent. Stop trying to make her look like something she's not. Daniel didn't even raise his voice. He just slipped a small black folder from inside his jacket, placing it on the table in front of the hall. You think so? Then maybe you should take a look at the property deeds, the business licenses, and the contracts, all under Elodie's name. While you were busy mocking her, she was busy building an empire you know nothing about. The room went dead silent. Forks froze midair. The laughter that once mocked me turned into dropped jaws. Amanda's eyes darted nervously between the papers and my face, searching for some sign that this was a prank. But I didn't move. I just let the truth sink in. Daniel wasn't finished. He leaned back, his voice steady but cutting. You all see a simple suit, an old car, no flashing jewelry. That's because we don't need to show off. What you don't know is Elodie owns 3 tech startups that are already valued in the millions. While you've been gossiping, she's been quietly changing her future. Gasps filled the air. Guests murmured in disbelief. I saw Amanda's friend clutch her wine glass so tightly her hand shook. Amanda laughed nervously, her cheeks burning red. That's impossible. She's lying. She doesn't even know how to run a business. I finally stood, my voice steady but sharp as a blade. That's what you've always believed, Amanda. You were too busy trying to push me down to ever notice I was climbing higher than you could ever dream. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. Everyone stared at me, but this time not with pity. With shock, with respect, with something close to fear, and just when I thought Amanda might sit back down in shame, she did something reckless, something that would turn the entire night into chaos. Amanda's face twisted, the fake smile slipping into pure rage. She slammed her glass down so hard it shattered, sending wine spilling across the tablecloth. Gasps echoed around the hall, but she didn't care. She stood up, pointing at me with shaking hands. You're lying. This is some sick joke. You've always been pathetic, Elodie. Always beneath me. You think flashing some papers will change that? You'll never be more than a shadow. Her voice cracked as she screamed, and the guests shrank back, whispering in disbelief. My aunt tugged at her husband's sleeve and whispered, "Why is she so desperate? Why can't she just be happy for her sister?" But Amanda didn't hear, or maybe she didn't care. She was unraveling in front of everyone. Then she lunged. Right there, in her sparkling designer gown, Amanda stormed across the floor, grabbed the folder Daniel had laid out, and hurled it onto the ground. Papers scattered like confetti. She stomped on them, her voice breaking. This means nothing. She's nothing. You all hear me? Nothing. The room froze. It wasn't me who reacted, it was Daniel. Calmly, he bent down, picked up a single paper Amanda had missed, and held it high in the air. Funny, he said, his voice dripping with cool authority, because this piece of paper is a partnership contract. A contract that shows Elodie owns a controlling share in a company, the same company Amanda begged for a job at last year. Gasps. All eyes swiveled back to Amanda, who was now pale as stone. Murmurs spread like fire through the crowd. Wait. Amanda applied there? And her sister owns it? Amanda's lips trembled, her confidence shattering. She stammered. That's not true, but Daniel cut her off. We don't lie, Amanda. We don't need to. Unlike you, we let success speak for itself. The silence was unbearable, the kind that makes every second feel like an hour. Amanda was caught, humiliated, and exposed in front of everyone she wanted to impress. But just when it seemed she had been completely defeated, Amanda's desperation took a darker turn. She smirked suddenly, her eyes glinting with spite. Fine. If the truth's out, let's tell all the truth. She turned to the crowd and shouted words that made the entire hall erupt in chaos. Amanda's voice rose above the stunned silence, her smirk twisted with malice. You all think Elodie is some angel? You think she's so successful and perfect? Let me tell you something she's been hiding. She only got where she is because she seduced her boss. She slept her way to the top. The hall exploded in shocked murmurs. Gasps, whispers, even a few people covering their mouths in disbelief. I felt my stomach twist, but I didn't flinch. Amanda had gone too far, dragging my name through the mud just to claw back her pride. Daniel stepped forward, his voice like steel. Enough. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and within seconds, a video began playing on the giant projector screen that had been set up for wedding photos. But instead of pictures, it was security footage. Clear as day. Amanda sitting in an office, crying, begging a company executive for a job. The same executive she was now accusing me of sleeping with, and then, her own voice echoed through the speakers, "Please, I'll do anything. I just need a job. My family can't know I've failed." The hall fell completely silent. All eyes turned to Amanda, who went pale, trembling, unable to breathe as her own desperate words exposed her. Daniel's voice cut through the air like a blade. "The only one who begged her way in was you, Amanda. Elodie didn't sleep her way to success. She built it. Every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every step, she earned it. And while you mocked her, she became the very person you once begged to work for." The crowd erupted, not in laughter this time, but in applause. People stood, clapping, cheering, some even whistling. Tears filled my eyes as I looked around and, for the first time, saw respect shining where there had only ever been pity. Amanda collapsed into her chair, her face buried in her hands, her reputation destroyed in one single moment. She had come to humiliate me, but the truth had stripped her bare in front of everyone. I stood tall, holding Daniel's hand, my voice steady but filled with fire. "For years, you all mocked me. You laughed at me. You left me behind. But today, you see who I really am. I'm not the forgotten daughter anymore. I'm not the burden. I'm the one who built something greater than your expectations, and I did it without any of you." The applause grew louder, people rising to their feet. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. I was undeniable, and as Daniel kissed my hand, leaning close enough for only me to hear, he whispered, "Let them see the queen you've always been." In that moment, surrounded by the same people who once doubted me, I didn't just feel like a bride. I felt like a woman who had finally won, not just her wedding, but her life.